Hey guys, welcome back to Off-Grid 101. I'm Steve. Today we're talking solar power. I recently picked up this Ecoflow Delta Pro 4,000 watt solar generator for a pretty good price. I paired it with some cheapo solar panels from Harbor Freight, and I'm going to be taking you through that process, showing you what it took to make them work together, talking about the costs, and I'm also going to be reviewing the different options that I went through in making my decision on what I wanted out of a solar power system, including a DIY component-based system, a combination solar charge controller inverter type system like EG4 offers, and these all-in-one plug-and-play solar generators. Obviously, I chose to go this way. May not be exactly right for you based on your needs. I'm also going to be testing it out with various different tool combinations just to see how many watts it can handle of load, as well as how long I can expect it to run under a load, so that I can see if it'll truly fit my needs for my cabin build. All that said, let's get into it, start unboxing, and get into the nitty-gritty. All right, I've got the Ecoflow. It charged overnight. It got to 100%, which isn't really great. You're only supposed to charge these to 80% in order to maximize the number of cycles that you can get out of the battery. This is rated for 3,500 cycles if you charge from 20 to 80%. That's programmable. You can download an app from your app store, and it'll connect to the device via Bluetooth, and you can program it to start and stop charging wherever you want. I haven't done that yet, but I'm going to do that very soon. To charge the device, it ships with an AC charge cable. This will plug into any 110 AC. It charges very fast. It also ships with this 12 volt car charge cable. This is also the format that you're going to use for your photovoltaic panels. This is called an XT60 connector. This is something that Ecoflow uses in their system. They sell solar panels that have this XT60 connection already on them. I decided instead to wire my Harbor Freight panels with XT60 in order to be able to connect to the Ecoflow. But yeah, that's something you'll have to take into account if you're considering using Ecoflow. So let's talk about what a solar generator is and why I decided to go for this type of system for my needs. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail explaining the different types of solar power systems and the different components thereof. There's lots of great content on the internet, especially on YouTube, about this. I really suggest Will Prowse's channel. He has a lot of really great reviews of different solar systems and explanations of the different components therein, as well as instructional videos on how to assemble various different types of systems. I'd say go check out his channel. It's really great. So what's a solar generator? A solar generator is a compact portable device that contains a charge controller, an inverter, and a battery all in one in a really beautiful tight package. In the case of this Ecoflow, it has a 4,000 watt inverter, which is capable of putting out 4,000 watts of power through these four 110 AC outlets. That means it could power approximately 30 amps of AC devices simultaneously. It's also got a 3,600 watt hour battery, which at the full 4,000 watt draw would approximately last an hour. And the charge controller is what you'll connect your solar array to. In the case of this Ecoflow, the charge controller can handle 1,600 watts of panels. That's approximately 4 large 400 watt panels or 16 smaller 100 watt panels like the ones that I got. But that's a good amount of PV input for a device this size. It'll fully charge that battery in just over 2 hours in direct sun. The Ecoflow also comes with 4 110 AC outlets at 20 amp maximum and a 30 amp outlet as well. It has USB-A and USB-C outlets for all of your low voltage devices. It's also got various 12-volt plugs here on the side for other low voltage devices, as well as Ethernet for a remote panel display. On the front, it's got a nice long handle, very sturdy, which is great because this thing weighs about 100 pounds. This makes it really easy to roll it around. Being that I'm going to use this thing as a portable unit, that's really valuable to me. Looking at the back, you've got your AC in, your DC in, as well as a reset button and 2 expansion ports. These expansion ports are great because it allows you to attach an external battery for additional storage, or you could hook up a second Ecoflow Delta Pro to get 8,000 watts AC, 7,200 watt hours of storage, and you could get 240 AC that way as well. Yeah, so that's a walk around of the system. Let's talk about why I chose to go this way. So I had been originally reviewing various different options for building a solar power system. I was considering a DIY component-based system like with Victron components, for example. This is the most customizable and expandable way of building a solar power system because you can duplicate or replace any of the components in the system. If you want a second charge controller, a second inverter, or a bigger battery or multiple batteries, you can do all of that without losing the investment that you've already put into the system. Obviously, for this type of unit, other than adding a second Ecoflow, you really don't have options for expanding, for example, just your charge controller if you wanted to make a bigger solar array. The inherent problem that I had with a component-based system is it's a lot of separate components. You really have to screw them all down onto a board, and it's not super portable. If you've seen one of these systems, people will typically attach them to a wall in their cabin or house, and it's never going anywhere once it's installed. Now, for me, portability was key because I'm building this off-grid cabin up in New Hampshire. I don't stay there full time. I wanted to bring my system back with me when I'm not using it. Furthermore, I really don't want to leave it up there during the winter. The battery will freeze, it'll go to 0% charge, and then I'll have to bring it home, kickstart it, and then I can bring it back and reattach it to my PV panels. So I really wanted to build something that at least the battery I could roll away with me. So I started looking into these all-in-one charge controller inverter type systems like EG4 offers, and I was really planning out my build that way. EG4 has this great 3,000 watt charge controller inverter combination. It's around $700, which is really price competitive against the component-based alternatives, and you can attach it all to a handcart that you could wheel away when you're not using it. So I was in the middle of pricing this thing out. The all-in-one unit was $700. An EG4 4,800 watt hour battery was about $1,200. All of the miscellaneous shunt, wiring, fuses, etc. was another $200-300, and then a handcart is $100. So all in, I was looking at around $2,250 plus shipping plus tax. It was going to be about $2,500 all in. And I remember I started looking at the Ecoflow. I think I saw an ad for it. And I saw that on the Ecoflow store, they had these refurbished units for $1,500 free shipping. And when I was comparing the specs to the EG4 all-in-one unit, this has 4,000 watts AC, that only has 3,000 watts AC. This has 3,600 watt hours of battery versus 4,800 in the EG4 component system that I was building, but battery really is less important to me because I'm not going to be building overnight. I'm mostly going to be building in the daytime, which isn't going to be utilizing a lot of the stored energy. And the 4,000 watts AC would really power a lot more of the types of tools that I'm going to be using, where I think the 3,000 watts would potentially struggle. And to boot, this is costing me 40% less than the EG4 system that I was configuring for approximately comparable stats and better stats for me in the areas that I cared about. There's really no way I could ever have built a component-based or all-in-one system that's comparable to this for nearly the cost that I got this for. And so I decided to go for it. Being a refurbished unit, there might be something wrong with it. Let's hope there's not. You assume that anything that was defective on it, they would have replaced or fixed. But we've got the battery with a full charge. We're going to test that out and see how it does with all the various tools, how long it'll run for, Hopefully everything's good on it. Next, we're gonna get into the Harbor Freight panels, configure them to work with this system, plug it all together, and test it out and see how it works. Here you got your 100-watt Thunderbolt solar panel from Harbor Freight. I picked up 6 of these on sale for about 90 bucks a piece. And my plan was to use them directly with the Ecoflow. Harbor Freight sells this combiner box where you can connect the panels together, and it's just plug and play, and then you can have one cable coming out. Now, so that's your connector that comes on your Harbor Freight panels. I thought this was XT60, but when I tried it with the Ecoflow, this does not connect to the Ecoflow. This is some proprietary plug. I don't know the standard. I haven't been able to find anything on it. If anybody knows, please comment on that because I'd like to know what that is. But my plan changed. This combiner box is also not really ideally suited for my purposes. They're only rated for 400 watts. It's just not ideal. So what I decided to do instead is I got these MC4 adapters, and these, my plan is to swap out these Harbor Freight proprietary cables with MC4. I'll connect all of these together, and then this is a MC4 extension and splitter. And so here I can create 2 parallel strands of serialized panels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a serial connection of 3 panels, and then these splitters will allow me to parallelize each group of 3. And then on the other end, I created this XT60 plug, which will plug that into my Ecoflow Pro. So that's the plan. First thing I got to do is crimp on some MC4 connectors for these guys. An important note when wiring solar panels is that you're going to need a special crimping tool. I got this cheap ratcheting crimper off of Amazon, I think for like 15 bucks. These MC4 connectors have one end open, and the way they crimp is inside of the crimper. You'll see here, there's a little heart-shaped double arch on the top. And what that'll do is it'll fold your ends over and make a good solid mechanical connection there. That's important. If you don't crimp it with the proper tool, you're not going to get a good connection, and that can start fires at your solar panels. So it's important, get one of these tools. It's called a MC4 solar crimping tool. If you search that on Amazon, you'll find a bunch of options. I just went for the cheapest one because I'm not going to be doing a ton of this. And on your MC4 connectors, this is your female end. It's marked with a little plus. I don't know if you could see that, but this should probably go to the red wire. I'm going to take out my multimeter now and just test it to make sure that that is generating positive voltage. So I verified it's positive, and then when I inverse the polarity, it goes negative. You don't want to strip too much wire off of this. I think it's, you just want to strip it right up to where it butts against the pin. So that should be enough. You can see the connection that it made. Folded both of those leaves over. I'm not sure that I fully trust that. It's a little loose. I think that these are made for a heavier gauge wire. It's a much tighter connection. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm probably going to drop just a little bit of solder on that anyway. All right, so that is my female side. And this screws on. So yeah, this is definitely made for a heavier gauge wire. I think what I'm going to do is put some electrical tape on that. so that this screw down will make a better connection with the wire as well. Alright, just cleaning up those wires a little. I'm going to do my secondary crimp. It's pretty nice. So I've got my two wires, they're both on nice and tight. So now I'm going to drop a little bead of solder on that. So now these connectors have little teeth and they're supposed to click in to the end here to make a solid connection inside. There it goes. That was a little pop. Yeah, that's in there nice and tight now. Just show you the solder. It's really just a little drip. Nothing major, just a little added. And this will, when I screw this down, that'll lock on to the wire. Give it just one last added connection. There, it slips. That's perfect. Very tight. And I'll do the same on this one. Beautiful. What I can do right now to test them is I can plug them into my combiner here. I'll just test it. My red is yielding a positive here. -12 volts. If I reverse that, -12. Perfect. Made a nice strong connection. And we're ready for the next panel. 5 to go and we're done. All right, now that I've got all my MC4 connectors hooked up, I'm gonna test them all one last time for positive and negative correctness. Then I'm gonna wire them together in series. I'm gonna make 2 series of 3 and then wire those 2 in parallel and connect them to the Ecoflow, take it all outside and see what kind of electricity it generates. Let's get these guys outside. All right, I've got these 3 in series, those 3 in series, and then I wired them in parallel. And what we're seeing is almost 60 volts. So it's 60 here, 60 there, and it's doubling the amperage. These put out about 5 amps each, so it should be about 15 amps. Sorry, it should be 5 and 5, so 10 amps total at 60 volts, so that's 600 watts in total. This is rated for, I believe it's 150 volts and, no, 100 volts and 15 amps, I believe. So we're under the limits on both of those. What we'll do right now is plug this in and see what it does. Let's hope it doesn't fry it. So I'm not seeing any charging. Well, we verified that we're generating a voltage. Maybe there's not enough amps. All right, we're generating 2 milliamps. I don't think that's going to be enough to register here. So what we're going to do for now is leave this plugged in and see what it does, see if it generates any bit of a charge. All right, I moved the panels out into whatever direct sunlight we could get. It's generating about 100 watts, which isn't great, but it's charging. This is winter sun, cloudy day. I got those trees out. I don't know how much that'll be able to charge, but it's pretty much static at around 100. So let's see what that's able to do. I'm gonna let it charge for a little while. Well, after charging for the day, it got to 31%. I was really just testing to see if I could get them charging, which it did. Obviously not a lot, but we're gonna move on to the next step of preparing to get these on our shed up in New Hampshire. All right, now that we've got everything working together, I want to see what this thing is capable of. So I'm going to put it under different kinds of loads to represent what I'm going to be doing on my job site, including different sizes of tools and tools in combination to see how much load it can actually handle. Then I'm also going to put it under a continuous load and see how long that battery will operate. Let's get started with the miter saw. I've already got it hooked up. I've got a second camera on the screen. Let's see how it does. Wow. All right. 4,500 watts of startup power. That is a lot. So this thing is supposed to draw 15 amps. That should be around under 2,000 watts continuous. Let's see. Yeah, so once it's at speed, it's only drawing about 1,500 watts. But that startup is really killing it. It's pushing 4,500 watts, but this thing is handling it. It's a 4,000 watt AC rated unit. I don't know what the peak power is, but that is a lot. That's a lot of starts. It didn't trip on any of them, so we're obviously under the peak power with just that. Let's plug in something else and see. This is my old multi-tool. I obviously have a new cordless one there. But yeah, let's test this guy out. All right, it's like 300 watts on full speed. And it's like 200 continuous. Let's see if we can make it trip. If I start them both at the same time. That went up to 4,800 and did not trip. I want to get this over 5,000 and see what it'll do. All right, here's an old circular saw. Woo! That draws almost 4,000 watts on its own. So I'm gonna put that into continuous and then start this up. That's awesome. I think that peaked over 5,000 watts and did not trip. That's impressive. I'm gonna try starting them at the same time and see if that'll trip it. That did it. So let's see how we reset this thing. Oops. Yeah, turning it off will reset it. I think what happened is the AC just turned off. So the reset is just to turn the AC back on. Let's try that again. It's exactly what happened. So if you overload it, your AC power will turn off and then you have to restart that. I'm just gonna do that one last time and see if we can. I'm gonna put this in continuous again and start this guy. Yeah, I mean, that's drawing right around 5,000 watts and it's handling it like a champ. I'm really impressed with that. That's way better than I thought it would do. I'm gonna test it out with my welders and see how it does with those. Those will often trip my 110 to this shop. I only have 15 amps to this shop, and if I run my welders on full, sometimes that'll shut down my whole shop and I have to go reset my panel down in the basement. So if this thing can handle the welders on full power, that'll be impressive. Yeah, let's go do that. Okay, so I'm over here with the welders. I'm gonna start with my MIG. It's a 180 amp welder. I've still got my Ecoflow on the other side of the shop, so I'm not gonna be able to see what it's doing. I'm only gonna see if it trips. So I have this piece of scrap set up and I'm gonna run some beads and see how it does. All right, that's not half bad. Ran a pretty clean bead actually. I don't really care about the quality of the bead here. I just want to see what this thing's capable of. So what I'm gonna do is turn this up to full amperage, see how it does with that. That handled that like a champ. That's a pretty sizable bead, power all the way up. And I heard the fan come on the Ecoflow. I don't know what it was drawing in terms of watts, but it didn't stutter at all. You could see the bead's actually really clean. Now I'm gonna test out my stick welder. It's a smaller unit, but it actually draws a little bit more amperage than the big unit. And that's what's tripped the circuit in here before. So let's see what that does here. All right, we got that set to 120 amps. Let's see what that does. Again, no apparent problem with that. I heard the fan come on, but did not seem to struggle really. Not my best stick weld ever, but I'm not a great stick welder to begin with. Let's turn this thing all the way up. It's at 140 amps now. Let's see what that'll do with the Ecoflow. Woo. Yeah, that tripped it. That was a little too much. So 140 amps on this guy. I'm gonna go restart the Ecoflow and we'll try that again. You know what? I'm gonna turn it down to 130 and see if it can handle that. Not bad. It ran half a stick at 130, didn't trip. I'm gonna turn it back up to 140 and see if I can run off the rest of this stick or if that's gonna trip again. All right, well, that time it handled it. I'm pretty impressed with that. Obviously, for the majority of my welding needs, it's going to be able to handle that better than this garage circuit has been able to do in the past. So I think I'm actually, during the winter, I'm going to keep the Ecoflow over here and power my welders off it. So that said, the last thing that I want to do is I want to wire up my table saw and run that on a continuous run and see how long that Ecoflow can run before all the power is drained off. Okay, here we go. Ecoflow is currently at 96%. Got this plugged in. I'm going to turn it on, let it run. Let's see what it does. Oh boy. That tripped it. Probably should have tested that first. Let's try it again. Yeah. All right. Ecoflow cannot handle the table saw. That puts a hamper in our test. I think that's good to know. So I won't be able to use this table saw on my job site. Fortunately, I have a smaller DeWalt table saw for the job site. Hopefully it can handle that. We'll test that out later. Right now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find a tool that I can run on continuous, and yeah, we'll try that out. All right, here's my Grizzly belt sander. This thing will run continuously. I should have thought of this before. It's a little safer than a table saw running. But yeah, we're gonna plug this guy in and give it a shot. Let's see if the Ecoflow will handle that. All right, so that worked. I'm just gonna run it for a bit and see how much power it draws down over time. Okay, Ecoflow's currently at 95%. This thing draws about 500 watts. I'm gonna run it continuously with a timer, and we're gonna watch the Ecoflow and see how much that draws down over time. It'll give us a sense of if this thing will power the job site for a day, for example. All right, so I ran it for about 5 minutes. It drew down 1%, give or take. I'm gonna try something else. I think I'm just gonna run my fan because that's actually made to be running for extended periods of time. And I think that'll also draw a lot more power than this. So that'll give us a better sense of what to expect without destroying an expensive tool. So let's get that hooked up. All right, I'm gonna speed up the video here. I added a timer down on the bottom left. So I ran this fan for about 4 hours, starting at 92%. I had the batteries die a couple times on the screen video. In the end, the battery died also on the fan video, just under 10%. So I decided to trim this down to 4 hours, and what you're gonna see is this thing ran from 92% battery life down to 12% in that 4 hour window, and that's at about 670 watts continuous draw. So that's almost 2,700 watt hours over a 4 hour period for 80% of the battery life. This is in the middle of winter. It's literally freezing in there. So that's really impressive. I wasn't expecting all that, but yeah, let's watch this run out, and then we'll get into my review of the whole thing. There you go. All right, so final thoughts. Mixed review. Really happy with the Ecoflow, not so much with the Thunderbolts. Surprisingly, that's kind of the opposite of the reviews that I've seen on both of these units. I think that most of the reviews that I saw on the Ecoflow were given its $3,700 price point. Having gotten this thing for $1,500, I think that is an absolute steal. As I said before, you can't build a component-based system for $1,500 that could do what this thing can do. The 4,000 watts AC really handles almost everything I threw at it. Obviously, my table saw was a little too much, but I have a smaller job site saw up in New Hampshire. I think this will more than handle that. So for my needs, it's great. The 3,600 watt hour battery blew me away. I mean, it ran for a solid 4 hours with a 700 watt draw. And that's in literally freezing cold weather right now because winter is on us. So super impressed with this thing. and it'll take 1600 watts of photovoltaic. So I could keep this thing fully charged at all times, assuming that I put enough solar panels attached to it. And I think it'll more than power my job site for the entire spring and summer next year. So I'm very excited to put this thing to use. That said, the Harbor Freight Thunderbolt solar panels, people seem to love them. I don't know why. I mean, sure, I got them for 90 bucks for a 100-watt panel, and I got them earlier in the year too, when I think prices on photovoltaic panels were a little bit more cost prohibitive. But these days you could get a 400-watt bifacial solar panel for just over 100 bucks. So when you compare that, that's 4 to 5 times the input of this at approximately the same price of what these are going for today. On top of that, I had to wire the damn thing because it comes with some proprietary plugs. I had to wire it for MC4 so that I could even get it to work with my system, because the plugs that it has only work really with Harbor Freight. So if you're going all Harbor Freight, sure, yeah, maybe that makes sense. But then when you compare, Harbor Freight only sells lead acid batteries. They only sell very small charge controllers. So you really are limited to basically a 400-watt system with 4 of these panels, with their combiner box, you know, with very expensive 12-volt lead acid batteries. You're way better off going the other end of the spectrum, get a 48-volt system and go for those 400-watt bifacial that can maximize at 500 watts of photovoltaic input when both sides of the panel are used. So yeah, I've even thought about, do I scrap these guys, throw away my $600 investment? For 200 bucks, I could get 800 watts. It'll cost me 200 bucks just to get this to 800 watts. So then beyond that, I'm at a loss if I continue investing into this platform versus going with some of the other options that are out there. So that's how I feel. I think if I were to do it again, 100% I would go with the Ecoflow. These will daisy chain. You could get 2 of them and that'll give you 220 voltage AC. You can also add batteries to this. I think for the price point that they're at right now, it absolutely makes sense. If you don't need an expandable platform to get to, say, 12 kilowatts AC, if you're powering a whole house, if you're powering just a small cabin, a job site, anything that needs any kind of portability, I would say the Ecoflow is absolutely, for cost reasons, the way to go. But if you are building a solar array, skip Harbor Freight. I would say even if you're going to get into a platform, the Harbor Freight platform is not the way to go. There are other options out there. The Renogy platform. It's also, they have a 12 volt and a 24 volt. I would say go for the Renogy 24 volt platform, because 24 volt systems just are better all around. It's lower amperage, smaller wire gauges, and overall lower cost to scale. So skip Harbor Freight. Thunderbolt, not the way to go. I'm probably going to use this at least for year 1 and see how the 600 watts does for me. I think by the end of next year, I'm probably going to scrap this and go for a better solar platform. That's it. That's all I got for you guys. I hope this video was useful. If you liked it at all, I'd really appreciate a like and a subscribe. I've got a lot more content coming. Winter is upon us. Not going to be getting out to the property probably while it's snowing, because we are about a mile off grid and the road to it is pretty impassable in the winter. So I've got a bunch of other projects in the shop that I'm going to be working on during the winter. Really excited to get to that. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.